Now onto our scripture reading, Judges chapter 6, verses 36 through 40. Then Gideon said to God, in order to see whether you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said, I'm going to lay a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said. And it was so. When he rose early next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, do not let your anger burn against me, but let me speak one more time. Let me, please, make trial with the fleece just once more. Let it be done on the fleece, and in all the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night. And it was dry on the fleece only, and all on the ground there was dew.
I don't know how many of you heard Jonathan read the text and just that small portion of the story thought to yourselves, why in the world would an entire organization who give away Bibles name themselves after this dude? I did a junior high Bible study years ago where we studied Jephthah, Gideon, and Samson back-to-back weeks, 3 weeks in a row. And then on the fourth week, we split the kids up into groups and they each did a campaign for who is the dumbest person in the Bible today. It's one of these three guys, which is really sad because it comes on the heels of Deborah earlier in Judges as one of the smartest people along the way, one of these great leaders. And then you get Jephthah. I'll let you all go look that one up on your own. It's hard to explain how dumb that guy is. And then you get to Samson, who keeps pretending he doesn't know what's going on and then gets suckered and eventually tells the woman everything, even though he knows not to trust. And you think to yourself, how many steroids did the guy take? And then there's Gideon, who decides to bargain with God, to test God. Now, here's the catch. This is not Gideon's first experience with God. Earlier in the chapter, not the book, just the chapter, same chapter, God has already sent an angel to him, had him bring out bread and meat and suffer a sacrifice. The angel has taken a staff and touched the rock, and it's all consumed. And Gideon considers this might be a sign from the Lord. So much moved, though, is Gideon that he's willing to go out and tie oxen to a big pole that's in the middle of town in honor of the Canaanite god Baal and tear it down at God's request. Everything goes pretty well. The people are freaked out the next morning, and they say, why did this happen? And they said, Gideon did it. So they go to Gideon, and Gideon says, if Baal's that great of a god, let Baal contend with me. Woo! Some spice. And then God says, great, you did good for that one. Now it's time to get rid of the oppressors over my people, time to set them free. We're going to pull the people together, and you're going to lead them. And this is when Gideon says, I think I might want another sign from God. Fearless. Fearless. Old Gideon is until it gets real. And then Gideon gets all weird on us. God, if you really want me to go to war and free your people, could you do one more miracle? And God does it. And then Gideon says, but just if you really, really, really mean it, could you do one more miracle? Who in the world does Gideon think he is? And why in the world does he think it's a good idea to keep testing God? Of course, Gideon's probably not the only one, right? How many of us have tested God, tried to bargain with God in one way or another, especially when we get the answer we don't want? Those of us who have found our ways into working for churches professionally know this well. God, if you really want me to be a minister, do this. It happens. God, if you want me to be a minister, if there's anything else I could do, nope. All the doors close. If you really, really want me, stop whining and go do it. But we've all done this at one point or another, right? God, if you get me through this, I'll always be good. God, if you can make them stay, I'll give the church all my money. God, if you bring me love, I'll be faithful. Of course, it's not just limited to God, right? We bargain and negotiate with each other relationally all the time. Kids to their parents, often with cookies on the line. Parents to bosses, with time to be at their kids' events on the line. Teachers to their students, with silence and a day of peace on the line. Drivers to police, with $250 a ticket on the line. Lovers to former lovers, with our identity sometimes on the line. At some point, maybe even this morning, all of us have bargained. I can't tell you that Sunday morning is the biggest bargaining time of the week, but I think Saturday night at the club and Sunday morning getting someone to go to church with you may be two of the most explicit negotiating times in our American modern schedule. We beg another person. We bargain with reality. We beg the universe to bring back someone who has left. We beg those in power to bring back our normal, even if the normal kind of sucked. It was normal. We beg, we plead, we bargain. And for some reason, all of this seems more realistic than accepting change. It doesn't have to be a death. It just has to be a loss. And sometimes we keep bargaining long past the change till the bargaining itself becomes debilitating. We're stuck, always trying to find another way out. We also know that bargaining is not the only part of this equation. When we lose someone, when we lose a job, when we lose our normal, when what has always been is no longer there to be counted on, we know these phases of grief come up. And you're going to hear me use this language of phases more than stages, because you don't necessarily move orderly from one to the next. Nora talks about them as planets, each with their own sphere of gravity that pulls us from one to the other. And we might revisit one for a while, depending on what we need. Anger, depression, denial, acceptance. We'll visit them all at some point, along with bargaining. And all of these are natural parts of a grieving process and of a growing process. Grieving and growing really come together. Gideon knew loss. All the Hebrew people did. Let's be honest, any people who've experienced oppression know loss. People had died. Traditions, part of their culture, had been pulled away. Normal, gone forever. So Gideon wants to make sure it will be worth the risk. Sure, I pulled a pole down in the middle of the night, but now we're putting lives on the line. Gideon wants to make sure the work will pay off. But we know there's no way to assure that, right? We know there's no way to predict the future. There's no way to prove what we take on faith. Still, bargaining has a positive side. Bargaining has a positive side. It reveals hope and priorities. Our bargaining reveals hope and priorities. Bargaining is a time of imagining what we really want. How often do we float through life not knowing what we really, really want, what we really, really need? Sounds a little Spice Girls-ish there, but when we start bargaining, we suddenly realize how much we cling to something or to someone. We suddenly become aware of what we would give up for it. Election season's always fascinating. People say one thing is their priority, and they get into the polls, They choose something different. And afterwards, the pollsters are confused because they said this was a priority, but they voted based on this. At some point, when we start making choices, or when our choices start being limited, we find out what we're willing to give, what we're willing to give up, what we're willing to do for those things that matter most. This realization won't undo a loss, but it will help us live more fully going forward. Someone who's experienced loss when they're younger may understand the importance of those close next to them now. Those who've been through lots of loss and survived it can tell those who are younger, you'll make it through. Bargaining, like all these other phases of grief, is natural. It's not required. You can be grieving something without bargaining. You can skip some of these phases, but it's not shameful either. It's a natural process, and each of us will go through it in a different way. Each week during May and that first week of June, we're going to hit these 5 phases of grief and talk about them. All of them natural, and all of them with something to teach us, something to motivate us, to shift us, to grow us, to move us. And like all aspects of grief, our sense of bargaining gets easier when we share the journey with others. When we talk about it with friends, with family, and loved ones. And when they're tired of listening to us, or when their listening ear and presence still hasn't helped us sort it out, we share it with a good therapist. All these folks can help us process our feelings, even while we flail against reality. We've all lost someone or something. And no amount of bargaining will change that. No amount of if-then negotiations can change the reality of change. But if we listen to ourselves, we can learn a lot. What do we think others value? Because that's what we'll offer them, right? What do we think others expect of us? Because that's what we promise to do or offer more of. Who do we bargain with? Because that's who we think has power. Bargaining can tell us a lot about ourselves, a lot about the way we see the world, if we will listen to our own hearts, listen to our own questions, and grow from them. Part of healing is discovering the power and the agency we still have, recognizing that we might just want to bargain with ourselves. Part of healing is discovering what we truly value and what we truly love. Part of healing is discovering that hope still grows within us. It's a journey. David is going to bring a song to close out the sermon. It is written secularly, but I think as you hear the longing in the song, you will recognize some of your own prayers, some of your own bargaining, and the journey we go through from discovery of loss to discovery of what more might come.
Hey Jesus, it's me. I don't usually talk to you, but my baby's gonna leave me, and there's something you must do. I'm not your faithful servant. I hang around sometimes with a bunch of your black sheep. But if you make my baby stay, I'll make it up to you. It's a promise I will keep. Hey Jesus, it's me. I'm the one who talked to you yesterday. Asked you please, please for a favor, but my baby's gone away, away, away. And I don't really think that it's fair. You got the power, because I believe in you. And then we come in our despair, and you don't come through. Hey Jesus, it's me. Sorry. Don't remember all I said. I've had a few, no, too many, and they went straight to my head. Made me think I could argue with God, but you know, I think it's easy for you. You got friends all over the world. You have the whole world waiting for your birth. Now I ain't got nobody, and I don't know what my life is worth. Not sure I'm gonna call you anymore. I know you got a million things to do. All I was trying to do was to get through to you, get through to you. Cause when I die, up to your door, I don't even know if you're gonna let me in my place. How come I get to talk to you face to face?